Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. We're now into autumn, and as we go through this season and into the winter, it's going to be a very difficult time for many people for obvious reasons. So I hope you're all continuing to keep safe and well and continue to do so as best you can. I myself am still doing fine, as is my mother, which is great, and I've been keeping myself occupied in various ways as usual. I've been able to get out and about a bit more, and I've been keeping myself entertained at home, of course, in various ways. So as always, this is my usual monthly recap. None of it is sponsored or gifted. There's a great big blog post to go with it with lots more detail and links and things like that as usual. So yeah, that's all I need to say by way of an introduction, really. Nice and short this time, so I'm just going to crack straight on with it as usual, and I hope you enjoy it. So starting off with virus-related things to get them out of the way first. The test I took that I mentioned in my last video came back negative, which I'd expected, but it's nice to have it confirmed officially anyway, so that's great. It's not easy doing the test when you have a sight problem, and I probably didn't do it exactly right, but they didn't reject it, which is the main thing. And talking of sight loss in relation to the pandemic, the RNIB have published a video giving some tips on how to adjust to the new normal if you need a bit of advice for settling into how things have changed. And if you're in Scotland, you can actually get an audio representation of the graphs of cases and deaths as they've evolved over the pandemic. So it uses tones that go higher or lower depending on the number of cases or deaths going higher or lower. So go and check out that website. I'll put a link in the description below. It's quite a cool little feature, and it would be nice if we had something like that for the UK data as well. And I've also been mentioned in a couple of articles relating to the pandemic as well. So Tanya from When Tanya Talks has done a guest post in which she wrote about being disabled during the pandemic, which is a lovely insight into her experiences. And at the end, she lists a whole load of disabled bloggers that she recommends for checking out their experiences, and I'm one of them. So thank you very much, Tanya, for that. And then the stairlift retailer Handicare published a post offering tips for staying positive during tough times. So I was approached to give one of my tips to contribute to it, and I was happy to do so. So go and check out that article as well, because there's some useful bits of advice in there. But in general, away from the disability stuff, we've got new restrictions in the UK now, just as many parts of the world have. And we haven't got a national lockdown, and we're hoping to avoid that. But there are some localised lockdowns as well with more extreme measures, and it wouldn't surprise me if here in London we need to have some more extreme measures at some point, even if it's just temporary. But we'll see how it goes. We can't get complacent, of course. We do have to be very careful, but we are in a much better position than we were because we have much better scientific knowledge. There's more testing and treatments out there now, and we know we can suppress the virus because we've done it once before, and there are very positive signs in all the vaccine trials going on at the moment. So we've just got to get through these next 5-6 months over the autumn and winter, and then we should have, as I say, more positive news going forward about where things are going to go next. And of course, we now have the new NHS Test and Trace app that's been rolled out across England and Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland have got their own apps already. So I do encourage you to download the app if your phone supports it. Mine doesn't, the iPhone 6 is too old, but the 6S and the 6S Plus and the SE, they all support it, as does the iPhone 7 upwards, and various Android phones also support it. It's not built by Serco, and it's not stealing your data and invading your privacy, stuff like that. I'll put links in the description all about it, and there's links in the blog post as well. It is perfectly safe to use from everything I've seen about it, and it is accessible as well. The RNIB have looked at it, and Henshaws have reviewed it, and it is apparently accessible to blind and visually impaired people, which is fantastic. So yeah, do get that app and use it, because it is going to be one of the many vital tools we have in our arsenal to suppress the virus and deal with any cases that pop up. And as I mentioned in my last video, I also recommend getting the COVID Symptom Study app as well, which I can use on my phone. And this is a vital research tool which over 4 million people have signed up to, and you just log into the app each day and answer questions about how you're feeling and whether you've had any tests lately. It just helps them keep track of where the cases are, where hotspots are popping up, things like that. So do get involved with that too. It's a vital tool, as I say. So then moving on to other disability related topics, and Vocalise have published a couple of very interesting reports recently that you might want to look through. The first shows the results of a survey of visually impaired people like myself into museum reopenings and what we think of online streaming of exhibition tours, things like that. So that was quite an interesting survey to do. And then the other report is called Describing Diversity, and discusses how and when best to describe the personal characteristics of characters in theatre shows when you're doing audio descriptions. That's quite an interesting discussion to have. And then Vocalise are also continuing to publish their weekly interval newsletter, which highlight online content that's audio described, like shows and tours, things like that. So that's always worth a look through each week. And you can have it emailed to you as well, of course. And they've put together a YouTube playlist of audio described videos on the site, which you might want to look through because there's quite a variety of stuff in there. Now, in those cases where you want to put audio description on a video on YouTube, you have to upload a second copy of the video with the audio description built in, because you can't choose between audio tracks on a YouTube video like you can on Netflix or a DVD, say. But now YouTube have figured out how to do it, and they have demonstrated that it is possible to have multiple audio tracks on a YouTube video. If you look at the new trailer for the Assassin's Creed Valhalla video game, then you'll find that if you click on the gear icon where you go to select subtitles, there's also an option there to select a descriptive audio track as well as a standard audio track, which is fantastic. So if that feature works out and they get good feedback for it, hopefully it will be rolled out to all creators over time, because there's so much potential there for audio description, for audio commentaries, for alternate languages, for alternate music tracks, all sorts of things. But hopefully a lot of people will use it for audio description as well, which would be fantastic. So yeah, it would be great to see that feature rolled out and publicised and people encouraged to add description to their video. It would be great. And of course, we've been hearing one or two more reports recently about accessibility being considered more in video games. The Last of Us Part 2 has been a great example where there's been a huge range of accessibility options within the menus for you to choose from. And now Luke Winkie has written an article for IGN about how to audio describe an entire video game. So you get audio description through the entire gameplay. So that's an interesting topic to read about, and it's just great that accessibility is gradually being considered more and more in the video game industry, and I hope that continues to improve. And then in other brief bits of disability news that I thought you might be interested in, the Nystagmus Network have set up a Nystagmus Youth account on Instagram, so if you're young and you're affected by nystagmus, you might want to follow that. The Sight Village event, which is run by Queen Alexandra College, is hopefully going to be running in Birmingham from the 29th to 30th of October. It's obviously going to be in a much reduced capacity, and there's going to be pre-booked tickets for timed entry, things like that. And obviously it will depend on any restrictions and lockdowns that are in place at the time. So it's not 100% certain that it will happen for definite, but hopefully it will. But if you follow their Facebook page, which I'll link to, then they'll give updates nearer the time as to whether it's happening and what you need to do. And then the Revitalise charity are running a Care for Carers campaign where they're urging the government to give proper support to carers of disabled and seriously ill loved ones who just don't get a break from their duties. You know, it's hard for them at the best of times to get any respite, but especially now during a pandemic with all the rules and the isolation conditions, things like that, it's very difficult and generally impossible for them to get any kind of break these days. So they're urging the government to give more support, and you can sign up to help raise awareness and help, petition the government to give more support to those people. So then moving on from that to the walks I've been doing, and I've been pleased to get out and stretch my legs a bit more over the past month, especially in central London, which I obviously haven't visited much during the year. So I've been able to have a walk around Regent's Park and Battersea Park with a friend and go along the South Bank, things like that. So it's been great to be in central London again. The tube's been lovely and quiet as well. Most people I've seen have been wearing masks, so I felt perfectly safe going up there. And I've also been for some walks around my local area as well. As I mentioned in my last video, I'm using the Strava app to record my routes and the City Strides app to create a life map of everywhere I've been, so I can see which streets I've done and explore new routes all the time. And it's certainly incentivising me to walk a bit further as well. For instance, when I'm coming home, rather than getting on at the nearest tube station to me like I normally would, as it's the easy option, I will walk to another station that's 2 or 3 stops further down the line, so I get to tick off a few more streets on the map, and I get a bit more exercise as well. And when I'm exploring my local area, I'm able to do so in a much more comprehensive and systematic way. So I'm finding all sorts of streets and shortcuts that I never knew about before and would never have considered looking for. But it's great to be able to find them and just get to know the area on my doorstep so much better, which I reckon a lot of people never do. And then moving on to theatre related stuff, and I haven't seen any new shows this month, but I have given a bit more support to the West End by buying some merchandise from the Theatre Support Fund, which raises money for Acting for Others, the Fleabag Support Fund and NHS charities together. This is run by 2 people, and they've basically created this lovely design where it says the show must go on with an exclamation mark on a black background, and each character, including the exclamation mark, is taken from a logo of a different West End musical. So you've got things like Wicked and The Lion King and Matilda, and everybody's talking about Jamie and Six and Hamilton, and all sorts of other musicals are represented in there, which is a really nice touch. It's really colourful and looks really cool. So I've bought myself a t-shirt and a face mask and a big tote bag and a mug as well. So yeah, I'm really pleased with all that. It raised a bit of money and I've got a bit of cool merchandise out of it as well. And I encourage you to take a look at the merchandise they have and see if there's anything you fancy buying and supporting theatre in the process. And then I've also been enjoying a couple of the behind the curtain videos on the official London Theatre channel where you get performers singing songs from their musicals and answering questions and having other bits of banter, things like that. So I've watched the videos for the Only Fools and Horses musical and for Wicked, and they're both great fun to watch. And the Shows Must Go On is back as well. This is the YouTube channel that started during lockdown with a load of Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals, and then they've branched out into other Universal owned titles as well. So they're back now. They've launched with Fame the musical, which I tried but didn't really get into, and then they've had a Michael Ball concert as well. So do subscribe to that channel and keep an eye on it to see what's going to be coming out every Friday. As per usual, every show is up for 48 hours, so you have to catch it quickly over the weekend if you don't want to miss it. And then Shakespeare's Globe have published a version of Romeo and Juliet on their channel, which very generously is up for free until February half term 2021, so you've got plenty of time to watch it. And there's an audio described version as well, which is why it's particularly notable. It's a 90-minute kind of fast-paced version of the story. It's basically aimed at students and families to help get them into Shakespeare, but I'm sure anyone can enjoy it as well. I haven't watched it myself yet, I'm just telling you what I know, but I will give it a go, and if I like it and feel it's worth mentioning, then I'll bring it up in a later favourites video. So then moving on to comedy, and the most notable thing for me this month has been Showman, the new Michael McIntyre stand-up special on Netflix, which also has audio description, which is fantastic. And he's on top form as usual, telling great stories and giving great observations. He's very funny as always. And this was filmed at the London Palladium in early March, so just a couple of weeks or so before lockdown hit. But he doesn't mention COVID or the pandemic at all. It's great escapism from that. The closest he gets is when he mentions meeting people wearing face masks when he goes on tour in Asia. That's it. So yeah, it's great escapism from everything that's going on in the world. It's very funny and I highly recommend it. I also enjoyed watching the rest of Harry Hill's series World of TV on BBC Two. That's great observational humour as well. And that inspired me to rewatch all my DVDs of TV Burp that I've got in my collection as well, because I hadn't watched them for a little while. And that show's just as funny as it's always been. This new World of TV show is basically a very stripped back version of TV Burp. But obviously TV Burp was better, I think, and it's a shame that that's not in the schedules anymore. I have been watching Jonathan Ross's Comedy Club as well. I do kind of skip through quite a few of the acts because there are people on there I don't like. As with all these kind of shows, it's always a bit of a mixed bag. But there have been good people in there as well, like Kerry Godliman and Beck Hill. It was great to see her on there. And the BBC have jumped on the bandwagon as well with a show called Stand Up for Live Comedy, which is basically an outdoor version of Live at the Apollo in effect, where comedians are performing on outdoor stages to socially distanced audiences. There's a nice variety of comedians there. There's bound to be someone in there that you enjoy. And of course, I'm still enjoying QIXL as usual as well, the extended editions of that show. And there are things to look forward to in October as well. So Have I Got News For You is back for its 60th series on its 30th anniversary, and they're back in the studio as well, which is fantastic. Spitting Image is back for a new series on BritBox after many years off the air. I'm not too bothered about it personally. I've seen the trailer and I'm not that keen on it, and I was never really a big fan of the original series, but a lot of people might like it, so you might want to subscribe to BritBox to check that out. But the most exciting thing for me is Taskmaster, which is back on Channel 4 on Thursday the 15th of October. They've got a great cast list for this series, including Catherine Parkinson, Richard Herring, Johnny Vegas, etc. So that's going to be well worth a watch, and it'll be interesting to see how they get on in their new home. And then in terms of online sketch comedy, I've recommended Julie Nolke in the past, and she's still producing great content, but she's also had some good guest stars in their videos as well recently, and they've got their own channels with their own sketches you might want to check out. And they are Christian and Nat on one channel and Ryan George on another channel, so go and check them out too. You might enjoy some of their videos as well. So then moving on to music for the final section as usual, and I'll start off with the Rolling Stones album Goat's Head Soup, which has been re-released in a remastered form and sounds so much better than it ever did before. And if you buy the deluxe edition, there are 3 bonus tracks on there, one of which features Jimmy Page, plus various different mixes of various tracks and an entire live show called the Brussels Affair. So there's a lot packed into it, and it's a great Stones package as usual. I also enjoyed a documentary on Sky Arts about Madness called Before and After. This was about some shows they did last year to celebrate their 40th anniversary at the Camden Roundhouse and Electric Ballroom. So it was great to hear them performing again. They always sound fantastic on stage, and it was lovely to hear them reminiscing as well. We didn't learn anything hugely new, but it was nice to hear them talking about old times. And don't forget that a couple of members of the band also performed a special lockdown gig as well earlier in the year, so that was backed by a string quartet and sounded really nice. So go and check that out too. I'll put a link to that in the description as well. King's Daughters have released a new single called Dancing in the Rain. You may remember them from earlier in the year when they produced a single called Get Up, which featured Brian May. And he's again been the producer for this record as well. And it's basically a tribute to people who have died during lockdown and the loved ones who couldn't say goodbye to them properly. Talia, one of the members of the band, lost her best friend during lockdown and couldn't go to the funeral. And there are many people like that who couldn't say their proper goodbyes. And there are people in the video who have submitted photos of their loved ones for that reason. So it's a very touching video, but it's also a very catchy song. It's a celebratory song about these people's lives. And even though he's not there in person, Brian May does feature as a cardboard cutout at one point, so see if you can spot that in the video too. The Grey Eye Theatre Company have produced an audio described and captioned music video for their new cover of the Ian Dury classic Spasticus Autisticus to celebrate the 8th anniversary of the London Paralympics, so that's a cool video. And the Couch Choir have produced a lovely version of Happy Together, which is a classic song by the Turtles from many years ago. And then just to get a mention of Queen in there somewhere, I've published my review of their Sheer Heart Attack album this month, the third in my series, going into great detail about each album. So looking at each track and the alternate versions, the isolated tracks, the live performances, cover versions, and so on and so forth. So they're huge posts, but you can do them bit by bit, song by song, section by section as you want to. The next post I'm working on is Night at the Opera, although I say post, it's actually plural because there's 2 parts to it. There's so much I'm discovering as I'm going through this. It's really cool. So if you're a fan of Queen or you're just curious about finding out more about some of their songs, then do go and check out my posts. Hopefully there'll be stuff in there that interests you, that you enjoy. But there will be much more to mention about Queen next month, of course, because of their new live release, showcasing some of the best live performances they've been doing with Adam Lambert in recent years. So I'm looking forward to that. And then finally, just for fun, there's been an epic drum battle going on between a 10-year-old girl called Nandi Bushell from Ipswich and the mighty Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters. So Nandi's been posting videos on her YouTube channel and Dave Grohl's been responding with videos on the Foo Fighters official Twitter feed. And basically, Nandi covered a song by Foo Fighters called Everlong. She did a drum cover of that. And then Dave Grohl responded to it after getting loads of messages from people saying, you know, he had to check her out. So he performed a song that he wanted her to cover and she did so. And then he responded with a song specially written for her. She's responded with a song specially written for him in return. It's quite fun. It's quite cute, you know, and Dave's a good sport. So yeah, do go and check that out. It's good fun. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found things of enjoyment and interest in there among that packed selection as usual. And also best wishes for the months ahead. You know, I am going to keep posting videos every month as per usual because there'll always be stuff to mention, but it's worth offering best wishes anyway, given the period that we're now in with the second wave and everything. So I hope everyone's able to obey the rules and stay safe and well. And best wishes and thank you to all our key workers and health professionals, of course. They always deserve a mention. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. As I say, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe as per usual. And I will see you for another video very soon. Bye.
The next station is Monument. Change for the Central, Northern and Waterloo City Lines and DLR from Bank.
Mind the gap.